Hey guys, it's Amanda and welcome back to my YouTube channel. First of all, happy Artsy Fartsy Friday, and second of all, today's video is a little bit different. It's very exciting and I'm very excited to share this with you guys, but it's going to require a little bit of explaining. So first of all, this is a collaboration between myself, Alexe Brewer, and Jennifer Charlee. They're both here on YouTube. They're amazing. I actually got to meet them in person at Crunchyroll Expo, so I will have both their channels linked down below as well as both of their videos. But while we met up in person, we all had this idea to do a three-way collaboration, and we decided to do the Scribble challenge. Yes, so each of us did a scribble and we passed it on to the next person, so each of us got a different scribble than the one that we created. I got Alexe's scribble, and I'll go ahead and insert a picture of that here just so you guys can kind of see what it was that I was working with. I changed the orientation of the scribble and I actually flipped it the other way, and that is how I got the idea to draw Kiki from Kiki's Delivery Service. The scribble is actually the top of her bow, and I didn't show the sort of drawing and sketching process, but I used my light box. I basically printed off a copy of the scribble in a few different orientations and sizes, and sort of built my sketch from there. And I had a few different ideas actually going into this, but a lot of the ideas I had were really summery. And since this is actually the official first day of fall, I didn't really feel like drawing something that was super reminiscent of summer, so I wanted to do something more fall related, which is how I came to the conclusion of drawing Kiki from Kiki's Delivery Service. Now, if you guys don't know, this is an adorable movie from Studio Ghibli, or Ghibli. I think it's Ghibli. Whatever. It's an adorable movie from Studio Ghibli. It's super, super precious. It's about this 13-year-old witch and just her life experiences and relationships that she builds in this little town. She has a cat named Gigi it's just a cute story. If you guys have not watched it, I highly recommend finding a way to track it down. And I'm inking this with a new ink that I purchased. It's an acrylic ink. I really, really like it. I'm kind of considering doing a whole video dedicated to it because I'm actually a super big fan and I want to pick up some more colors. But basically it's an acrylic ink, which means it's water resistant. And that was important because I decided to paint this in watercolor, as you can see me doing here. I'm starting with the background, and you can see me sort of leaving an empty space around Kiki, and that is going to be the moon. Yes, I know it's not really accurately sized, but I thought that it really framed the focus of the piece very well, which is why I sort of decided to do this. And it especially highlighted the point of the piece that I created from the scribble, and so I thought that it was really important to have all of the attention go to that point. And so I'm just kind of building up various colors in the background. I'm using the Canson watercolor paper with sort of an assortment of watercolors, including some of the Reeves watercolors, which are sort of chalky in my opinion. I've never really noticed this in the past, but with these dark washes of color, I realized that they can be really grainy and chalky. So let me know if any of you guys have had similar experiences. While I do like the texture of the background, I think it has a lot of really cool grit to it, which makes it look almost a little bit more realistic. I don't particularly care for the grittiness that it created for the other parts of the piece. And you'll see that later on. In fact, I even posted on my Instagram story that I was sort of struggling with this piece a little ways through it. Probably about halfway through this piece, I wasn't really happy with it, but it was sort of rapidly approaching the deadline, and I knew I didn't have time to start all over again, so I kind of just had to grit my teeth and stick it out. But in the end, I actually really liked the way that it looked. It just sort of went through what I call like an awkward teenager phase for a little while, and I wasn't really sure if it was going to turn out the way that I wanted. But lo and behold, I actually did make it work, but I'm not very confident with watercolor still, and there was a couple of variables in this piece in particular. First being that it's watercolor, second being that I was trying this new ink, which I really like I mentioned, but it was a little bit too light for the overall color scheme. So I actually end up, unfortunately, going over that with some black ink later on in the video, which you will see. So it was a lot of like winging it, which I don't do very often, but maybe I should do more of, because it does take me out of my comfort zone, and sometimes having to take risks and try new things and change my plan is a good thing. It's a good thing for me to practice, and while it does stress me out quite a bit, I think that in the end I came out with a piece that I really like. I really love the style, and I have to say that because I've struggled with trying to recreate Studio Ghibli characters in the past, where I feel like their style and my style don't really mesh. But I actually really love the style of Kiki in this piece, and I think it totally fits with my current style, and I don't know, I'm happy with it. Another thing that I will mention that I'm proud of with this piece is how I was able to push the light and dark contrast a little bit more. I mentioned in a previous video that I just don't really feel very confident in my ability to push the lights and darks when I need to, and so a lot of my artwork just kind of ends up being this mid-tone, and it's definitely lacking in that sense. But I feel like in this piece I kind of tried to create this halo lighting effect, which meant I really had to push the shadows on the sort of interior of the figure and push the highlights on the perimeter. And I think I accomplished that, you know, and I think for me this was a step forward, a step in the right direction. So I can definitely tell that I am improving on that front. But this was the part of the piece that I was looking at it. It was late at night, and I was just realizing I don't like where this is going. So I went to bed, I slept on it, came back the next morning with a fresh pair of eyes, and sort of conquered it again. And I was thinking when I was going to bed that I would try and incorporate maybe some colored pencil to sort of push the shadows more and make it look more even and textured. And I definitely did end up doing that, but not as much as I thought I was going to. I think part of me just feels like, oh, I can't accomplish what I want to with watercolor. I just have to pull in other materials. And that's just not true. So, you know, it was kind of a good thing for me to not impulsively go in with colored pencil or marker to satisfy my comfort zone, but to just kind of wait it out and come at it with a fresh perspective and a fresh pair of eyes the next morning. You can see here I'm pushing the shadows on the dress a little bit deeper, and trying to make the shadows stand out while not making, you know, the folds and areas of her dress that overlap kind of all disappear. And I was just kind of trying to tweak the colors so that they all made sense. And the colors were the part where I was really starting to realize that the Reeves watercolors are just a little bit chalky. They weren't super vibrant. The pigment wasn't super pure. And I noticed that particularly with the red that I used for her bow, because the red is like a very iconic thing about Kiki and her character. Her bow is this bright red shade, and it needed to be bright red, and the watercolors really just weren't giving that to me. So that is one instance where I did rely more on the colored pencils. I'm talking about all of this and it's not even happening in the video yet, so I apologize. But just to kind of talk a little bit more about the collaboration with Jennifer and Alexe, this is such a cool opportunity, and it was such a neat experience actually getting to meet these artists in person after communicating with them online for a period of time. I've known Alexe for what feels like years now. She was the first person I ever did an art trade with on YouTube, and she had way more followers than me at the time, and it was just always something that I remember just being a very positive experience because she didn't care that I was a smaller channel. She liked my art and I liked her art, and so it really, you know, even though her channel was larger than mine and is still larger than mine, it never felt like we were on different levels. You know, we kind of just hit it off right away, and I've always loved that about her. You know, I didn't really feel like she looked down on me, which is nice. It's a good feeling. And then Jennifer, I've started interacting with more recently by comparison. And the instant connection that we had was that we both sort of have this connection to psychology and the mental health field and art. And so I look up to Jen a lot, and I totally feel like I can go to her with questions about my career, but also about my hobby. And that's a really cool connection to have with somebody, to feel like they know about both parts of your life, your hobbies and then your career, and then trying to make the two coexist and overlap, but also keep them separate enough so that you can enjoy each one for what it is. I don't know. So these are just two people that I totally connect with and feel like I have such a good rapport with, and getting to meet them in person at Crunchyroll was just such a dream experience. It was my first time meeting anyone really from YouTube in person, and it was just cool. And I can't wait to hopefully see them at more conventions in the future and table with them and just get to know them better. It's like you meet people through YouTube and you feel like you know them in a way, but you really don't, because you only see a very small part of who they are. But it was neat to just meet them in person. I mean, when I think about it, I met Alexe for the first time at Crunchyroll Expo and shared a hotel with her for the whole weekend, and it was fine. It was totally natural. There was no awkwardness, and there wasn't any awkwardness with Jen either. It was just we clicked, and so it was really cool. And that really made the collaboration process a lot more fun, because we were sort of building on this now real life relationship, and we're all kind of chatting now on Instagram, and it's just a big support group for one another. We encourage each other, we support each other, and rather than having this competitiveness of the creative industry, we're just cheering each other on, and it's really great. It's a lot of fun, and I don't know, I just love them. They're just the best. So yeah, definitely check out their videos. My Scribble that I created went to Jen, and I'm actually uploading a copy of that Scribble to my Patreon in case any of you guys want to do the Scribble challenge and participate. You can head over to my Patreon and download it. It's totally free. It's public for everybody, whether you pledge to my Patreon or not. So yeah, you can go check that out. The link will be in the description bar. You can see now I'm going in with my Pentel Pocket brush pen and adding some black lines. This really just helped to kind of clean up the piece. I think part of the reason I wasn't liking where the piece was going was because the ink I used to line the illustration was so much lighter than any of the colors I ended up using in the piece. And creating these darker lines really helped clean it up and make the image a lot more apparent. It helped it pop out a little bit more. And once I sort of intensified the shadows and started going in with colored pencils, it just started looking a lot more crisp and clean. So now that it's at this phase, I really start to fall in love with this illustration, and I'm having so much fun with it. I added these silhouettes at the bottom of a city, so that you can really tell she's flying high above the ground. And I love the motion and the movement, and I love her expression, and I'm totally kicking myself for not scanning the line art of this piece, because I think it would have been so cool to have you guys be able to color this line art. I think that would have been awesome. So I am really sorry that I was not able to do that for you guys. I'm going to try and do that more for future illustrations. That way, if you guys like the artwork and you want to color it for yourself, you can. And all of those line arts will be available on my Patreon. That's kind of what I'm using my Patreon sort of as a catch-all for everything that I upload, from my artwork to my tutorial resources to newsletters to polls to everything. So it's sort of going to be a central hub for all of my social media, and I would highly recommend that you guys just follow me on there. Like I said, you don't have to pledge. All of my posts on Patreon are public. So yeah, but we are kind of nearing the end of the piece. Pretty much the only other thing I go in and add are some highlights, and I do that with both a white colored pencil and a white gel pen, just to give me different variations of highlights and different intensities. You can see I intensify the red of her bow, which really kind of made the whole piece pop and come together, because that red is such a central focus. And so, and again, it really highlights the scribble that Alexe gave me. So yeah, this piece was so interesting, because when I first received the scribble, I had no idea what I was gonna do. But what really helped me was changing up the size and the orientation of the scribble, because it just helps you see it a little bit differently. And if you guys ever do the Scribble challenge, I would highly recommend taking that approach to it, just so that you sort of get out of your element a little bit. You know, you get out of your own head and you can kind of see the scribble more for what it is or what it could be. So yeah, here is a look at the finished piece. Definitely go check out the other girls. They're amazing. Send them lots of love, and I hope you all have a wonderful weekend. I will see you guys next time. Bye!